Hey everyone, welcome back to a new and slightly different video. I did mention at some point I would drip feed a little bit of real racing content for those especially who are interested in behind the scenes footage, or even just someone who's practicing sim racing and trying to break into getting out there on track like myself. It is a little bit of old footage, but kick back and enjoy my test day at Winton Motor Raceway in a Formula BMW. I hope you all enjoy.
Hey everyone, so I thought I'd give a bit of a breakdown as to how a test day would go, but also how my test day went on the 5th of July in 2024. So yeah, give you a bit of a breakdown and yeah, take you through the day. As you can see, it's quite early. It's about 7:15 in the morning and we're just getting ready basically. Yeah, it was quite cold, but later in the day it warmed up quite a bit, which was quite nice. As you can see, it was unloading the trailer time and yeah, managed to get the car off eventually and the rear of the trailer down. We're using just a normal standard trailer, nothing enclosed, nothing fancy. You know, it does the job and we got it there. So once we get it into the garage, it just becomes a bit of checking the mechanical side of the car and, you know, getting all the tools in the garage, getting everything as ready as fast as we can. Just making sure that the car's in a good spot before we go and do our driver's briefings. Thought I'd give you a bit of a background information on the car, and it's a Formula BMW, which is also known as Miguel FBO2. It's quite historic and legendary because this is what used to be used as the sort of young driver program in Europe before F2, F3, and F4 became a thing. It's quite nice to drive one of these things around. It's got a history to it, and it does make me feel closer to, you know, drivers that used to drive this car, like Daniel Ricciardo or Nico Hülkenberg or Sebastian Vettel. This particular car also belonged, or used to belong, to Tommy Smith. So yeah, it does bring, you know, that bit of history and makes me feel a little bit closer to some of these drivers, it's always a really great feeling. Just a few things that, you know, contribute to just making this such a really great car is it's an inline 4-cylinder BMW motorcycle engine, and it runs at 1200 cc's, so it's got a little bit of power, but what gives it that oomph is it weighs 455 kilos without the driver, so it's quite light. Then you've got, you know, combined with a 6-speed sequential gearbox and, you know, running off just normal 98 fuel made this really efficient and very cost effective to run, which is such a key factor when it comes to motorsports as it's so expensive. But enough about that in the time being. We'll move on to where the driver briefing sort of happens, and it's me and my mechanic and friend John chatting away about how we're going to run through the day. And yeah, we're just getting ready for the driver briefing, which occurred about 8:30 in the morning, about half an hour before the first car starts to hit the track. You know, the driver briefing goes for about, you know, 15 minutes roughly. They basically just break down how the day is going to be run and what's expected of us as drivers. If you've ever done sort of go-karting, they always give you a bit of a driver briefing into what they expect from you as driving around their center, and it's, you know, no different basically. They're doing the same thing, just on a much larger track on cars that, you know, go a lot quicker than the go-kart. It's just part of the natural thing of what you've got to do as a driver. So as I was still at the driver briefing, John just came back into the garage just to make sure everything was running smoothly with the car. We had it on the stand, and yeah, just running through the gears, cycling through the power, just making sure, you know, everything was all good before we went out and hit the track. John was going to be the first one to drive the car around the track. He was just going to go out, shake down the car, make sure that everything was working in order. This was part of his role for the day. Part of the reasons to probably why I wasn't doing it is, you know, I just don't have the experience in doing this sort of thing, as, you know, this is all brand new to me. I'm having to, you know, learn on the go and make sure everything's all working well. Yeah, this is just part of it. As a second test day, you know, there's only so much I can really focus on at the moment, but, you know, I'll get there eventually and I'll learn eventually, but it's just going to take time, and it's just time in the car. That's really just where it comes down to. So, you know, making sure that I can at least keep it in a straight line, you know, keep it on the track, you know, go as quick as I can, and it's really about hounding in some laps for me. As a sim racer, you know, I've got a lot of experience on the sim, but in real life, there's obviously so many different factors. You know, the sim it's a lot closer than a lot of people give credit for. If, you know, those that do know as a racing driver, they use the sim constantly, but, you know, for those that don't really know, you know, the sim gives you so much, especially when the track is pretty much one-to-one. You know, the cars are not always one-to-one. It depends on the model of the car, but, you know, there's so much to be learned from going from sim to the real thing. There's just other things that, you know, you've got to look for as a driver, that how the car should be feeling and what it should be doing. And if there's anything off, you know, it's one of those things in the sim you'd pick up, you know, certain things. The game will tell you, or the sim, I should say, will tell you if there's something wrong. You know, the engineer comes over the radio and goes, you know, oh, something's broken or whatever. Yeah, there's none of that in this sort of thing. You know, you've got to feel it. You know, we don't have telemetry data like the Formula One do because we're just not at that level. So we have to learn there's something wrong. You know, we have to pick it up straight away, and it comes down to that experience thing. And John has a lot more of it than I do. As I said, it'll come with it. It just requires time and it requires laps and, you know, just driving this thing around a track. As you can see now, we're just getting John ready and strapped into the car and doing up these seatbelts. And as a driver, it's so hard to do your own seatbelt. With the helmet on, the Hans device behind, which is that little piece that goes on your neck and that holds your neck in place to the car. So if you have an accident, your neck doesn't go very far. It's pretty much strapped in. You need that help because you need that second person on the outside to strap in with the belts because it's so hard to do. As a driver, you can undo those belts really easily because it's just a click of a button, but to actually strap them in and buckle them in, it's such a difficult challenge. And so, you know, luckily I had a couple of friends there helping me out, and you know, we got John in there eventually, and you know, ready to go. So it just came down to time for us, and when we're able to go out on track. The way these test and tune days work, it's you get a 20-minute cycle every hour, and you get paired with cars that are very similar in your class. As we're driving an open wheeler, we are paired with the open wheelers, and your sort of sports cars are paired with sports cars. But between myself and my friend, we're having to sort of push start this car because we're having a couple of battery issues, and you know, we eventually got this going, and John got the car going, but yeah, we kind of came to a grounding halt the moment we hit the edge of the pit lane, so that was a good time. And yeah, so we brought that car back in, but you know, round two, away we go, and got the battery in properly, working properly. So John hit the track and round he went, checking out the car and, you know, making sure everything was running quite nice and smoothly. So it wasn't very fast, but again, it's not about speed. This sort of first run was making sure that car safety is at the utmost, and that's the priority, making sure that everything was working. By the time I hit the track, I wanted to make sure that I didn't have any stopping procedures. I didn't have to, you know, waste time. Time is such a crucial factor, especially when you're learning, and every little bit that you can get on track makes such a big difference. As you can see, we've got such an enormous crowd here cheering us on, watching us and seeing how we go. As that 20-minute cycle fell and John brought the car back in, and wonderfully done. It was, you know, everything was running pretty smoothly. You know, everything was ready for me. It's now just getting myself ready into the car, and away we went. So then once John got out, he gave me just a bit of a breakdown and a bit of an explanation of how everything was working in the car, especially with the gearbox. It had been a while since I was last in the car, so I needed a bit of a refresher course with everything. So those tips make such a big difference, and your engineer is so vital because they give you all the information that you desperately need to know, because you're there to focus on the driving, and you can just focus on concentrating on what you need to do. For me, especially being in the early days, it's literally just doing as many laps as possible. And I think by the end of the day, we hit 40, 50 laps, especially because we missed the whole first session due to those battery issues where the car came to a grinding halt at the edge of the pit lane with John, and he was very happy about that one. But we missed session one essentially. We managed to do the rest of the sessions, and you can see John now sort of strapping me and getting me ready. And this is where it comes down to when I was explaining before, you need that extra person outside the car to do those belts, because you just can't do it. And yeah, it's nice and warm in there, to be honest. It's especially with your race suit on, you know, you've got your thermals on, the helmet. It's very, very warm. You can see getting the mirror ready, because your mirrors are such a key factor, because you can only, and there's only so much you can really see through those mirrors, because it's not like a normal car that you drive on the road. Like your vision is so crucial, and you have such little vision, so it becomes a real awareness factor, and knowing where everyone else on the track is. Everyone's got their own program, and you know, everyone's quite respectful, because in these test and tune days, it's not about overall lap time. It's just getting laps in, and you know, there are some people there that probably do want to smash in some laps, try and get the fastest lap and stuff like that, but everyone's pretty respectful about what others are doing. John's now just he's checking the oil pressure, the water pressure. It's just that preparation, really. There's so many things that you need to check off before, you know, you even just drive one of these cars around a track. And everything is crucial. It's vital, and you've got to make sure that you're getting these things right, and you're doing what you need to do, because you know, one little thing that you haven't checked off could spell disaster. Everything is so important, and everything is, you know, you need everything to go right. Now we're just getting ready for my first session, and yeah, I'll probably cut a little bit of the chatter, and I'll probably go through a couple of things here and there as I go, but you know, mostly I'll leave you guys just to listen in on the audio and just to watch a bit of the video. Yeah, well, away we go from here. can see, I'm quite tentative on especially the very first lap. We're on old tires, and it's been a while since I've driven, and on this track as well. So I've driven on this track once before, but very tentative, especially out in the open. And yeah, just making sure that I didn't want to make any mistakes. I just wanted to sort of bleed through it and make sure getting the warm-up cycle well. And we also had to, because it's old tires, we also had to make sure that we had to get rid of quite a bit of that surface layer on the tires and scrub through it, get those heat cycles through. So by the time it came to sort of session 3, session 4, we could really start to push, because yeah, these tires were like rocks. John did a little bit in trying to get some temperature through them, but it was going to take a while, so I had to really be quite tentative, especially on these opening laps. And with that, session 1, it was nicely done and dusted. Everything went pretty smoothly. Car was in a good working window. No battery issues, thankfully. And yeah, everything was really working well. Was very happy with how that went, to be honest. Now comes the part where we sort of just chat over how the session went, how everything was ticking along, and just making sure that, just for a bit of tips and advice and, a bit of feedback with how I thought it could be better, how, what John thought I could have done better. So it all plays a part. So just making sure that, we're working in sync, cars in sync with us too. So, and that's the key areas. So, little by little, it's just building up that experience, and advice is such a key factor. And, the more you can absorb, the more you can just apply, really. And so now comes the part where we kind of just give the car a sort of a once-over and a check, making sure, the rockers are all holding up, the wishbones are steady, and, there needs to be a little bit of give with the wishbones. But, the other thing as well is we always check at the start when the car is ready to go before session 1. But, the car's cold at that point, and as it starts to run on track, with heat, everything expands. So you then need to make sure that what you checked earlier is correlating to later down the track, where when the car's warmed up, everything is still working very well. So that's just the joy of these things. And it just comes back to that preparation and making sure that the next session, the car's prepared and you're prepared.
Formula 3. If this is a Formula 3, I guarantee you there'd be like a pile of oil underneath that thing right now. Right. Okay. So leaking a drop or two when it's hot and it's been working, perfectly fine. The good thing is, the oil's clear.
Yep.
Okay. Doesn't smell burnt. Okay. It means there's nothing.
What does it taste like?
Broken. What does it taste like?
You come and try it.
It tastes like sadness when I go to bed at night. I can still smell it. That's what it tastes like. Then I run a spanner over and check everything. But it's just like a drop or two. Like we.
And with all those checks done, it's time for session 4 of the day, but my second session. With that, we'll hit the track. Okay, as we end this session, we start to have something a little annoying happen. With about 5 minutes to go, I started to lose power down the straights, and I noticed it where when I was cycling through gear 2 and trying to get into gear 3, I'd lose all the revs and then they would build up really quickly again. This ended up turning to be an issue with this new battery. We weren't sure exactly as to what was wrong and why this was kind of happening, because when we brought it back into the garage, everything looked pretty fine. Everything was, charging, everything was working, but for some reason, whilst we were going on a long run, the battery was dropping in volts. it would be fine the first 5 minutes, and then about midway through it would drop a whole volt, and then, you know, with about 5 minutes to go it would drop again, and got to a point where the car just went into limp hold mode with what, 3 minutes to go, and, you know, I had to basically just crawl it back into the pits. And this is where John's just checking to if everything was okay on the steering wheel, but something was quite annoying because it ended up ruining a bit of time towards the end of our sessions. But luckily this was the only, like, the most affected session, because as we got further into the day, the battery was able to hold out till the end of each session, which was fine because it meant that I didn't have to go into limp home mode again after 15 minutes. I could get that full 20 minutes of running in there, so it was okay. But we seem to know what the problem is now, and we'll hopefully rectify that for the next test day. It just goes to show that at any time something can go wrong, and, you know, luckily this isn't too bad of an issue. It just meant that we had to just monitor it and make sure that, you know, the next time we hit the track, it was going to get us through to the end of the session, come back in, and away we go again. We also weren't the only ones having some issues. There were a few other cars having quite a bit of smoke going through their engines, and, you know, they were also having a few issues. So it wasn't just us. It was, you know, there was other cars that was also happening too. So kind of made us feel a little bit better about it, and also that our issue wasn't that bad either.
Maybe it was oil.
Get this little angle on the chin
Maybe it was
scratch.
oil too.
Yeah, that's good for filming in the garage.
So for a while, I got a block galley and it's struggling to run through the core.
And with that done, back onto the track. Okay, as we head towards our final session of the day, I thought it'd be a good idea to show you guys just a lap attacked in a little bit more anger, with a bit more speed to it. It wasn't my fastest lap recorded, but that was a really good lap, and yeah, enjoy. One of the handy things about having so many cameras on the car and on yourself is you can show off in a couple of different ways. So yeah, this was the 360 camera we had strapped to the side of the car, just next to the engine intake. Gave a little bit of a cool camera view, and yeah, maybe a couple of cool shots for later down the track. with that comes the final lap and the final session of the whole test day. Couldn't complain just how great it went. You know, aside from the little hiccups we had with the battery, you know, all in all, it was a great test day, and you know, we got a lot of laps, and I went, what, 4 seconds quicker than the last test day I did, which is really awesome because it had been quite a while since I was last in this car on this track. Yeah, can't complain with how that went. It was good fun and was tiring at the end. And if you don't know much about the physicality side of racing, it's, you know, there's a big factor on your neck, your core, your shoulders, your arms. It takes a lot out of you, and by the end of this my neck was quite sore, especially as you start to go a bit quicker. All in all, was good, and I want to thank you all for watching. If you stuck around this long, thank you so much, and I hope you guys have gotten a little bit out of it. If you didn't know much about racing, then hopefully I've maybe cleared up a few things here, and if you are super keen on racing, and hopefully I've opened up a bit more to the world. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and bye bye for now.